I'm about to destroy my career. Everything I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes, I was never supposed to say. I signed agreements, I made promises, I played by the rules of an industry that has rules for a reason, rules designed to keep certain truths hidden from the people who need to know them most. But I can't do it anymore. I can't watch another buyer get manipulated into a purchase that will ruin them financially. I can't facilitate another transaction where everyone at the table knows the truth, except the person writing the check. I can't be part of this machine anymore, so I'm walking away. And on my way out, I'm telling you everything, not the sanitized version, not the marketing spin. The actual truth about how this industry operates. What really happens behind closed doors, the things brokers say to each other but never to clients, the systematic deceptions that happen in every single transaction, the ways buyers and sellers are manipulated without ever realizing it. I've been a yacht broker for over a decade. I've closed millions of dollars in deals. I've worked with some of the biggest names in the business. I know where all the bodies are buried because I helped bury some of them. And I'm done pretending this is an honest industry serving clients' interests. It's not. It's a rigged game. And I'm about to show you exactly how it's rigged, who's rigging it, and why almost nobody escapes without getting hurt. What I'm going to reveal will make you angry. It should make you angry. Some of you will think I'm exaggerating or that I'm a disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. I'm not. I'm someone who got into this business genuinely wanting to help people find boats they'd love, who believed the industry was fundamentally sound despite some bad actors, who thought I could be one of the good ones. And over time I realized there are no good ones. Not because individual brokers are bad people, but because the system itself is designed to extract maximum value from transactions regardless of whether those transactions are good for the clients. I participated in that system. I benefited from it. And now I'm exposing it because the cognitive dissonance of knowing the truth while pretending everything's fine, it became unbearable. So buckle up. What's coming is going to challenge everything you thought you knew about buying and selling boats. You're going to learn things the industry desperately doesn't want you to know. Things that once you understand them, will make it almost impossible for you to trust anyone in this business again. And maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Maybe the whole system needs to be burned down and rebuilt on actual honesty instead of the carefully maintained illusion of honesty that currently exists. I don't know if what I'm about to do will change anything, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. At least I'll know I tried to warn people before they make mistakes that will haunt them for years. This is the truth, the real truth, and it's uglier than you imagine. Let me start with the most fundamental lie, the one that everything else is built on. When you work with a yacht broker, you think you're working with someone whose job is to facilitate a fair transaction. You think brokers are neutral intermediaries who help buyers and sellers come together at mutually beneficial terms. That's what the industry wants you to believe. That's what we're trained to project, but it's completely false. A broker's actual job, the one we're compensated for and evaluated on, is to close transactions and maximize commission, period. Everything else is secondary. Customer satisfaction, fair pricing, long-term relationships, all of that is nice when it aligns with closing deals and maximizing commission. But when there's conflict between client interests and broker interests win every single time. And there's always conflict, always. Because commissions are percentage-based, and because we only get paid when deals close, our incentives are fundamentally misaligned with clients' best interests in ways that matter enormously. Let me give you examples of how this plays out in practice, because the abstract misalignment might not seem that important until you see the concrete ways it manifests. When I'm representing a seller, my incentive is to push them to accept any reasonable offer, even if waiting might get them better terms. Why? Because a closed deal now means commission now. A potential better deal later means continued work, continued uncertainty, and risk the seller gets frustrated and goes with another broker. So I'm always subtly pushing sellers toward accepting deals, even when their instinct is to hold out. I'll find ways to frame offers as reasonable even when they're actually low. I'll emphasize market conditions that suggest they should take what they can get. I'll point to carrying costs and time value of money, all of which might be technically true, but the real reason I'm pushing is because I want my commission. And here's the thing, it works. Sellers trust me because I'm supposed to be representing their interests. They listen when I tell them an offer is fair or that the market won't give them better. They accept terms they wouldn't accept if they truly understood the market. And I close the deal and get paid. This happens constantly. It's not even considered unethical in the industry. It's just how business is done. When I'm representing a buyer, the dynamic is even worse. My incentive is to push them toward more expensive boats and toward closing quickly. More expensive boats mean higher commission. Faster closes mean I can move on to the next client. So when a buyer is looking at two boats, one that actually fits their needs and one that's bigger and more expensive, which one do you think I'm going to emphasize? When a buyer has reservations about a boat or wants to think about it more, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to create urgency. I'm going to minimize their concerns. I'm going to push them toward the decision that gets me paid. And this is standard practice. Every broker does it. We're taught to do it in training. There are literally sales techniques for overcoming buyer objections and creating urgency. The entire approach is adversarial. It's about manipulating the buyer into doing what I want. But we dress it up as client service. We tell ourselves we're helping clients make decisions, but we're not. We're manipulating them into decisions that benefit us. Now you might think, okay, but there are buyer's brokers specifically representing the buyer's interests. Surely they're different. They're not. I've worked as a buyer's broker. The incentive structure is exactly the same. I get paid commission when the deal closes, more commission on higher priced boats. My interests are still misaligned with the buyers. The only difference is I'm legally supposed to prioritize their interests, which creates a nice veneer of protection but doesn't change the fundamental dynamics. I'm still motivated to push toward expensive boats and quick closes. I just have to be more subtle about it, and I am. We all are. That's what makes buyers brokers so insidious. They create the illusion of advocacy while operating under the same corrupted incentive structure. Buyers think they're protected, so they let their guard down, and that makes them easier to manipulate. But it gets worse, so much worse. Let me tell you about information control, because this is where the real manipulation happens. As a broker, I have access to information that buyers and sellers don't have. I see all the listings. I know what boats have sold for recently. I know which boats are sitting and which are moving. I talk to other brokers about market conditions and specific boats. I have comprehensive market knowledge that individual clients can't possibly have, and I use that information asymmetry to my advantage constantly. When I'm representing a seller, I'm not going to tell them about comparable boats that sold for less than they're asking, because that might make them reduce their price, which reduces my commission. I'm going to show them the high comparables and say their pricing is reasonable. When I'm representing a buyer, I'm not going to tell them about boats that have been sitting for months with no interest, because that would give them negotiating leverage. I'm going to create the impression that boats are moving and they need to act fast. I control the information flow to support whatever narrative serves my interests in the transaction, and it's even more systematic than individual brokers manipulating individual clients. There's an industry-wide information control system. Listing prices are kept artificially high because high listings benefit everyone in the industry. They create the impression that boats are valuable, which makes it easier to get buyers to pay more. The fact that boats don't actually sell at listing prices, that actual transaction prices are often 15 to 30% lower. That information is obscured. We report listings, not sales. We talk about asking prices, not closing prices. Buyers have no idea what boats actually sell for, which means they have no idea whether they're overpaying, and we like it that way. Market transparency would destroy our business model because it would give clients power. Information asymmetry is our most valuable asset. We protect it ruthlessly. Let me tell you about another practice that happens constantly, but nobody talks about. Pocket listings. These are boats that are for sale but not publicly listed. Brokers keep them private and only show them to select buyers. Why would a seller agree to this? Because the broker convinces them they'll get better results with a targeted approach rather than broad market exposure. But the real reason brokers love pocket listings is because they can control both sides of the transaction. They have the seller, they find a buyer in their network, they represent both sides and collect double commission. And because the listing is private, there's no market competition, no price discovery, no verification that the terms are fair. The broker can tell the seller they got a great price and tell the buyer they got a great deal, and neither party has any way to verify it's true. Pocket listings are fundamentally anti-market. They exist to benefit brokers at the expense of clients. And they're incredibly common, especially at the higher end of the market. Now let me talk about the relationship between brokers and surveyors, because this is something buyers really need to understand. Surveyors are supposed to be independent third parties, providing objective assessment of boat condition. But they're not independent. They're part of the industry ecosystem, and they're subject to the same incentive structures as everyone else. Surveyors get business through referrals, primarily from brokers. A surveyor who kills too many deals by being overly critical stops getting referrals. So there's subtle but real pressure on surveyors to be reasonable, to not be alarmist, to frame findings in ways that don't torpedo sales. Most surveyors are honest professionals who resist this pressure, but it affects behavior at the margins. A finding that could be characterized as either concerning or manageable, the surveyor will usually choose the latter characterization if they want continued referrals. And brokers know which surveyors are deal-friendly and which are deal killers. We steer clients toward the deal-friendly ones. We say things like, "This surveyor is very thorough but balanced," or "He won't miss real problems, but he's not going to kill the deal over minor issues." What we're really saying is, this surveyor understands the game and won't cause problems for us. And clients have no idea this filtering is happening. They think they're getting independent assessment when actually they're getting assessment that's been pre-screened to be transaction-friendly. Let me tell you what happens in broker-to-broker conversations that would shock buyers and sellers. When I'm representing a seller, and I'm talking to a buyer's broker, we're not advocating for our clients against each other. We're collaborating to close the deal so we both get paid. We're discussing how to manage our clients, how to overcome objections, how to move them toward agreement. We're allies, not adversaries, and we talk about clients in ways that would horrify them if they could hear. We refer to difficult clients as problems to be managed. We share strategies for manipulating them. We laugh about buyer fears and seller delusions. There's an us versus them mentality, where we're the professionals who understand reality, and they're the amateurs who need to be guided toward doing what we want. The level of contempt and cynicism in these conversations is breathtaking. These are people who are trusting us, relying on us, and we're talking about them like marks in a con. Here's something else nobody tells you. Brokers don't make money on small deals. The time and effort required to broker a $75,000 boat sale is almost the same as brokering a $300,000 sale, but the commission is 4 times smaller. So brokers focus on higher-end boats and treat smaller deals as nuisances. If you're buying or selling a boat under $100,000, you're getting bottom-tier service from brokers who view you as a waste of their time. They'll go through the motions, but they won't prioritize you. They won't fight for you. They won't do the work needed to get you a good outcome. You'll get whatever minimal effort is required to maybe close a deal, and if it doesn't work out, they'll move on without a second thought. The industry is structured to serve wealthy clients and extract maximum value from them, while everyone else gets scraps of attention. But nobody tells you this up front. Every broker will act like your deal is important to them regardless of price point. It's not. If you're not spending serious money, you don't matter to them. Let me tell you about the ethics training we receive. It's a joke. We're taught the legal requirements, the minimum standards we have to meet to avoid getting sued or losing our license. But there's no genuine ethical framework beyond legal compliance. There's no discussion of how to resolve conflicts between our interests and client interests because the assumption is that our interests come first. We're taught sales tactics that are explicitly manipulative, things like anchoring, scarcity creation, objection handling, closing techniques. These are adversarial tools designed to overcome client resistance and push them toward decisions we want. And we're taught to do this while projecting trust and client focus. The entire training is about how to manipulate people effectively while making them think we're serving them. It's sociopathic, but it's completely normalized in the industry. Nobody thinks twice about it because everyone does it. Let me talk about market conditions right now, because this is where the lying has reached almost farcical levels. The market has crashed. Inventory is overwhelming. Real transaction prices are dramatically below asking prices. Boats are sitting for months with no interest. Sellers are desperate. This is reality. But if you talk to brokers, if you read industry publications, if you attend boat shows, you'll hear a completely different story. You'll hear about market stabilization, about prices finding support, about strong buyer interest in quality boats. You'll hear that it's a great time to buy or sell, depending on which side you're on. You'll hear optimism and confidence. It's all lies. We know the market is terrible. We talk about it amongst ourselves constantly. We're stressed about our incomes. We're worried about the future. We're watching colleagues leave the industry. But we can't tell clients the truth because the truth would make them even more cautious and defensive. So we maintain the fiction. We keep smiling and projecting confidence and talking about opportunity. And clients who want to believe things aren't as bad as they seem, they accept the fiction. They proceed with transactions they shouldn't proceed with because we've convinced them the market is better than it is. And we collect our commissions and move on to the next mark. Here's what happens when you try to be honest in this industry. I've tried. Early on, when I still thought integrity mattered, I would tell clients hard truths. I'd tell sellers their boats were overpriced. I'd tell buyers they should wait for better opportunities. I'd present survey findings honestly even when they hurt the deal. And you know what happened. I lost deals. I lost clients. Other brokers undermined me by telling my clients what they wanted to hear, and my income suffered while less honest brokers thrived. The market punishes honesty and rewards deception. Clients say they want honest brokers, but when actually confronted with honest advice that conflicts with what they want to do, they find brokers who tell them what they want to hear. So brokers learn quickly that honesty is bad for business and manipulation is good for business. The system selects for the manipulators and drives out anyone trying to operate with integrity. I survived by compromising. I bent my ethics to fit the industry norms. I told myself I was still better than most brokers, that I was at least trying to do right by clients even if I couldn't be completely honest. But that's self-deception. I was participating in the same corrupt system as everyone else, just feeling worse about it. Let me tell you what finally broke me, what made me decide to walk away and expose all of this. I was working with a buyer, a really nice guy, mid-50s, had worked hard his whole life and saved to buy a boat for retirement. He had a budget of about $200,000. I showed him boats in that range, but I also showed him a boat that was listed at $275. It was a beautiful boat, bigger than he needed, more expensive than he wanted to spend. But I could see him falling in love with it, and I knew if I pushed right, I could get him to stretch his budget. So I did. I emphasized what a great value it was, how boats like this don't come available often, how he'd worked hard and deserved to get exactly what he wanted. I created urgency by mentioning other interested parties that didn't exist. I minimized his concerns about cost by doing affordability math that was optimistic at best, and I got him to make an offer at $260. The seller accepted. I was going to make a huge commission, and this guy, this nice man who trusted me, he was going to buy a boat he couldn't really afford that was going to stress him financially for years. I closed that deal. I got paid, and about 6 months later, I ran into him at a marina, and he looked defeated. He told me the boat costs were killing him, that he was stressed constantly about money, that the retirement dream had become a nightmare. He wasn't angry at me. He thanked me for finding him the boat, and that made it worse. He still trusted me. He thought I'd helped him, and I knew I'd manipulated him into a decision that ruined what should have been the best years of his life. That was my breaking point. I couldn't do it anymore. So here I am, burning every bridge in the industry, telling you things I was never supposed to tell you. What should you do with this information? First, understand that you cannot trust yacht brokers, not because we're all bad people, but because the incentive structure makes it almost impossible for us to act in your interests when those interests conflict with ours, and they always conflict. If you're buying or selling a boat, assume everyone involved is trying to manipulate you in some way. Be paranoid, be defensive, trust nothing until you verify it independently. Second, do your own research. Don't rely on brokers for market information. Look at actual closing prices, not asking prices. Talk to multiple people, get multiple perspectives, build your own understanding of market reality. The information asymmetry is their power. Take that power away by becoming informed. Third, resist manipulation tactics. When a broker creates urgency, that's a red flag. When they push you toward more expensive options, that's a red flag. When they minimize your concerns or rush you past objections, that's a red flag. The harder they're pushing, the more you should resist. Fourth, negotiate aggressively and assume everything is overpriced. The market is soft. Sellers are desperate. There's enormous room for negotiation. Don't accept first offers. Don't believe anything about other buyers or time pressure. It's almost always manufactured. Fifth, get independent professionals for everything. Don't use surveyors recommended by brokers. Don't use lenders recommended by brokers. Don't use anyone who has relationships with the broker. Find your own people who have no connection to the transaction. And sixth, seriously consider whether you should be buying or selling a boat at all right now. The market is terrible. Values are falling. Ownership costs are high. The deals you're seeing aren't real deals. They're losses disguised as opportunities. Maybe the smart play is to not play, to wait, to charter, to find other ways to enjoy boating without ownership. Nobody in the industry will tell you this. But I will. Walking away might be the best decision you make. I don't know what happens after I post this. Maybe nothing. Maybe the industry ignores me and continues business as usual. Maybe I get sued, though I've been careful to speak in generalities and avoid specific clients. Maybe this sparks some kind of reform, though I'm not optimistic. Industries don't reform themselves, especially when the current system benefits everyone with power. But at least it's out there now. At least people know. At least buyers and sellers can make decisions with some awareness of how the game is really played. The yacht brokerage industry is a lie. The whole thing is built on deception and manipulation, and I'm done being part of it. I hope this helps someone avoid making a mistake. I hope this makes people more skeptical and more careful. I hope this causes even a little bit of the pain and loss that I saw inflicted on trusting clients who thought they were working with professionals who cared about them. The market is a lie, and now you know.